everybody, this is Tantris Humble, and today we are with Lain, the exiled writer. Did I get that right?
You got that right, man. Yeah.
Okay. So
I also happen to be the half Ukrainian in exile too, but that's a different story.
Alright, we're going to get more into that as the video progresses, but today we're going to Golden Gai. Golden Gai, I don't even know how you describe Golden Gai to people that don't know it. It's like this little village full of bars, and we're just going to find one, talk for a little bit, and hopefully entertain you guys along the way. So grab a cup of coffee and get comfortable, or don't.
Yes, see you there.
How's it been adjusting to the culture?
Gee, that's kind of interesting in that it hasn't felt too challenging.
Yeah?
Mostly because, people do talk about, like, being a foreigner, you're kind of a special status, almost kind of invisible.
Right.
In a sense. So there's less expectations put on you. Mm-hmm. I did study Japanese in college for 4 years.
Yes.
Which included, like, learning stuff about the culture and stuff. There's certain assumptions that, like, the most common stuff I was already aware of. So I don't remember breaking any major rules, like, not taking off your shoes in the right places and stuff like that.
I mean, have you ever been gaijin seated? You know what the gaijin seat is?
You have to explain it to me.
The gaijin seat basically means you sit down in the train and you get comfortable next to a Japanese person, and we're gonna take it right here. They look at you and they're like, ugh, it's a foreigner. Maybe they don't say it, but like they stand up and then they walk away.
No, I know what you're talking about. A couple of times,
yes,
but not as often as I coming to Japan. I heard about that,
yes,
and it hasn't happened that often. Like several times it does, but not super often.
Okay. Well, I mean that's good. Maybe it's because you're a good-looking guy. It usually happens with like the bad-looking people.
Well, no, I mean I think it's also like, dude, like the Yamanote-sen, the trains are super crowded in the morning. People are desperate for seats. They don't give a shit who it's next to.
Whoa. You think we should go down the alleyway a little bit before we start walking?
I think so.
All right,
it's cool.
Take a right. Let's go. All right, take a quick look at Golden Gai here. So I think we have to talk in our inside voices a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got the microphone here, but dude, just like look at this. Look at that. Isn't that insane? So Lain, have you've been here a couple times, right?
Yeah, like a couple years ago. I haven't been here recently, so it's a little bit refreshing, to be honest.
I mean, I really like it. It really reminds me of like home because I'm from Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a really famous beer town. And speaking of which, actually, so what about America, the States, do you miss most? And why are you here to begin with, actually? It's a better question.
Okay, I mean, so I'm from New York, Queens specifically.
Yes. Ooh, Queens.
Yeah, no, what I probably miss the most is friends, for sure. Friends, family is like number one. But I kind of like the, like Queens is home to, like, it's the most ethnically diverse area in all of America, which definitely has its pros and cons, both. But like, it was interesting getting to know a lot of different people of different backgrounds growing up, and that's definitely something that's kind of unique to the area there that I kind of miss. Yes,
definitely, because like when you live in Japan, you realize that 99.9% of all, I mean, it's even statistically, I think it's 98% of the people are Japanese, and basically everywhere you go, except for Golden Gai, you're like the only foreigner around. But yeah, I think I miss. This is gonna be a stupid answer. I miss peanut butter.
Okay, yeah, no, that's actually a good, surprisingly good answer.
That's what I miss. Not the most. I miss peanut butter, and I miss people talking to you directly about how they feel. Because the thing about Japanese people is they have hone and tatemae.
Yes.
Here, Lain, do you want to describe what hone and tatemae is for all the people who don't live here?
Yeah, so like, tatemae is like your public persona that you maintain, and you maintain all your opinions and everything first get funneled through that in public.
Exactly.
And then hone is like your actual feelings and thoughts, and usually that's saved for like close friends or family, but you don't tell it to anyone else.
Yeah.
Now, I do feel the frustration of that, people not being honest about their feelings.
Yes.
But I would say 80% of the time, I kind of appreciate them just bullshitting. 20% of the time, I am like, can you just be honest with me? But I think I prefer the bullshit more to the non-bullshit.
It's like Japanese people were exactly like me when I was in college.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
a
it's just
joke.
less drama, really, fundamentally. Less arguing with people.
I mean, I kind of appreciate that the Japanese, instead of saying no, they will say, "Oh, that's difficult," or that's intense. Like, "Hey, are you free next week Sunday?" It's like, Sunday is going to be kind of difficult. And when they really just mean like, "No, fuck no." I'm not,
Exactly.
Which is like, all right then. But then, here? I guess speaking of Japan, what advice would you give someone considering moving to this country?
So it kind of depends. It depends a bit on your situation. If you're a student and you get a dorm or something, it's a bit different. But apartments are expensive when you first sign up. Like, the rent overall is very reasonable. But when you first sign up, you have to pay like. It goes back to the culture a while back. But essentially, you have to pay like. A fee to the landowner for having the honor to rent from them.
Oh.
So like, for my first apartment, for my apartment here right now, I had to pay like 3 months rent up front as a gift, as gift money. You know, that doesn't count for the first 3 months.
Jesus.
It's just a gift that you don't get back.
Like,
so you do need I would say 4 to 5K up front for just moving in.
Yeah.
After that, the initial cost, the rent will be typically a lot more affordable than stuff you find in the U.S. But be prepared for that upfront cost.
Definitely. I mean, Japan is certainly a lot cheaper for the most part, but actually, hold on one second here. So this is this should be the magic bar that we find ourselves in. So you wanna pause the video for a second?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get into this bar. We're currently in Albatross here in Golden Gai, and Lain and I have decided to just, talk about things a little less related to Japan. We actually were having a very interesting conversation about, I think you said the will of, like, the law of love and passion and what drives you as an artist. You want to talk about that?
So I mean, this may be a term some of you are familiar with. Have you ever heard of the wickedest man of Europe, as he was dubbed by the media in his day, Aleister Crowley? He's an interesting figure who I think was onto something. Whether he was onto anything good is a different question, but he was onto something. And I think in his journey, as much wicked as perhaps you could find of him on the internet, I think some of his stuff was on point. And one of his mottos I quite like is, his central motto is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. And it is commonly misunderstood because a lot of people interpret wilt or will as desire, essentially, synonymous of desire, impulse, what you want to do. For instance, if you're hungry now, you want to eat, your will is to eat. No, it's your desire to eat, it's your impulse to eat. Or say if you've been married for 5 years and you find a cute girl and you want to perhaps commit some adultery, you might think, oh, that's my will. Now that's your impulsive desire, that undisciplined desire. That's not will. Will is something that you have to forge and really figure out for yourself. Like, what do you want? What are you willing to sacrifice to do? What do you want to do so much you're willing to sacrifice for it? For instance, in the other situation I was saying about committing adultery, if you're really true to your marriage, your will is to maintain that marriage despite your desires to perhaps at times, have nights with other women. But your will is so high to stay with your marriage that you keep with it, you discipline yourself for it. Will is fundamentally something with discipline. And so I like it because I like that motto because it emphasizes the importance of finding your deepest, in a sense, or as he himself would put it, Crowley himself would put it, your spiritual impulse, your greatest will to do something, and you're willing to sacrifice everything to do that one thing. And for me, I feel like writing is this thing I myself have already sacrificed a lot to pursue writing. I've classified it as my own kind of will, but it's something I'm willing to discipline myself for, even if it's led to some downsides in other areas, materialistically, for instance.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm getting you correctly, so like will is basically disciplined impulse.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disciplined. it's something that you feel is important enough to sacrifice for.
All right. Yeah, no, that's a really interesting thing because, like, okay, so this is the first time that Lain and I are actually making a video together. And one of the things I'm noticing is, like, look, neither of us actually have a lot of time in the day to make things and create things. We're taking, by our own volition, we have come here to make a video discussing various topics. And I found, Lain, you are an extremely interesting person, and that's why I wanted to do the interview.
Thank you.
No, seriously. Again, this is more about you than it is about me. But the whole idea is that, like, if you are passionate about something and you're willing to give material wealth in order to achieve whatever that thing is, then you're acting on your will.
Yeah.
And who said that again? Who was the person who said that?
So that was Aleister Crowley, who I feel like I'm definitely going to get some negative comments for that, because he was, again, defined of his day, by the media of his day, as the wickedest man in Europe. He went by the name he gave himself. This was a nickname he gave himself. Was the Great Beast 666, and he was writing in like the 1910s, 20s, 30s. He died, I think, in the late 1940s. He was very much going against the Christian values of his time, somewhat playfully so, but in some sense almost diabolically so. As he was delving in magic and that kind of occult kind of stuff. So he is a controversial figure. And again, I don't support the guy, or I don't follow him. I'm not a Selimite, which is the kind of philosophy, religion he kind of founded. I'm not by any means that. But I have read and researched a bit about him, and at the very least his motto that I said before, love is the law, love under will. Love is do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law, love under will. Love is the law, love under will. At the very least, I think he was onto something there. Even if the other stuff he's involved with, I don't exactly endorse.
Yeah, definitely. Oh. So I have to ask you then, like, what exactly inspired you to become a writer in the first place? Because you're very well read, and I know that you have probably read some of these books, like, twice over, thrice over.
Yeah.
To know that exactly what the writer. One of the things that I actually like about writing is that when you read a book, you become that person temporarily.
Yeah.
And I feel like in some sense, like, you're doing you might be. I've never read this, by the way, but you might be doing a good justice and representing exactly what that person might have been thinking. You've digested them, and now they are a part of you. Maybe you're extending their legacy for.
No, precisely. That's exactly it. So, like, it almost, when done really well, it's almost like a trance state. You are inhabiting another person's consciousness, and that affected me a lot in high school. That's the reason why I got interested in not just reading. In fact, first I was interested in visual novels, and then that extended into an interest in reading traditional books, because I was just so drawn into the world, not just world, perspectives that a writer can draw me into. And one of my favorite works is a visual novel, but it kind of comments on other, like, traditional philosophy, like specific Wittgenstein and his Tractatus, is Subarashiki Hibi Furen Zoku Sonzai, which in English is Wonderful Everyday Discontinuous Existence. And that work had a profound effect on me when I was 20, and it showed me how you can, in a sense, express what wants to be desired, with trying to be expressed in philosophy better when you use a narrative. Like, I've tried reading the Tractatus myself, and I can never get past the second or third page because it's just too dense. But having read a lot of supplementary material of the Tractatus, I have an idea of what Wittgenstein wanted to communicate, and I felt that the writer of Wonderful Everyday really captured the essence of what he wanted to do, of what Wittgenstein was trying to communicate, but he showed it through narrative, and that helped me understand it and appreciate Wittgenstein's ideas a lot better than his own actual Tractatus could have ever done. And that had such a profound effect on me that I thought, after reading it, nothing in my life is more worth than creating something that can have that similar effect on somebody else.
So basically making a kind of concept that helps someone come closer to their own will.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, precisely.
And that's kind of like what I've inspired to do myself. Of course, like this is a journey. And one of the things that I'm always humbled by people who are deep thinkers like you, Lain, because it makes me realize that I have so much to do and so much to read, and that like maybe I should stop wasting so much time on YouTube or like playing guitar in my free time, and instead like
I waste a lot of time on YouTube too. By the way, it's a sin of mine as well. So it's like it's a bit of a discipline. Sometimes I do have to be like I have to stop with this YouTube crap, and I need to get back to this book I'm reading. So, in this day and age, it's a particular vice you have to fight against at times.
You were talking about YouTube as a cold medium and a hot medium, or as a hot medium as compared to like radio and such. But you were making like this really strong point just before we began the video, and I was wondering if you could talk about that again in relation to how you think about YouTube as a modern medium in relation to other.
Yeah. So this goes back to. One of the founders of Media Theory, Marshall McLuhan, who interestingly enough started his career, he was an English professor. He got I believe his PhD in English, and then he got so interested in the modern media of his time, cinema and then TV as it emerged, that he focused more of his interest there, and became kind of a famous figure for that. And he kind of classified media under two different diverging segments. There's cold media and there's hot media. And cold media is stuff that's more focused on a single sense. It prioritizes a single sense. So a painting is hot because it prioritizes all your focus on the visual. Similar with books, it prioritizes the visual, as in the letters and how you interpret them. You have to look at the letters and it comes in. So it's a single sense. Radio is just audio, so it's also a single sense medium. But then multi-sensory medium starts to get more cool. And from here he was borrowing the lingo of the day, like cool being cool and laid back. Not so strong and focused, but being more just chill, essentially. And so he described TV as a very chill, very cool media because it invites participation. You don't need to be super focused. In fact, if anything, being a little less focused works better because it invites audience participation. So cool media is anything that kind of invites audience participation, and YouTube is really kind of the modern day extension of that.
I see. So you're basically saying that the way to differentiate between cold and hot media is that hot media prioritizes attention from the audience and engagement from the audience, if you will, whereas cold media, as you also just said, is more chill and isn't quite as active, I guess, from a creator's standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Cold media is it demands your focus, and you are in it for what the creator is. Hot media is going after more the creator, so the painter, the writer, or whoever's recording their voice in, say, a radio broadcast, is focused on more on tuning yourself in with what the creator is doing. Whereas cold media is more about participating. It's almost like a shared experience with the creator. So it's almost like a team effort.
So cold media is a team effort.
Yeah, cold media is more, you're more like participating with them. Or better word is pseudo participation. Think of game shows, like TV game shows.
Yeah.
The appeal of them is answering the questions and seeing whether you are getting the answers correct compared to the person actually competing. Now, you're not actually doing it. If you get all the answers correct, you don't actually win $1 million. But the appeal is that you are kind of participating with, perhaps with your family, being like, hey, what answer do you think is the correct one? And you're participating together, whereas a hot media is very focused, like a book. You're reading it and you're really in that author's world. He is creating the world you're inhabiting. You're not participating, you're getting absorbed. Okay. Hot media is you're getting absorbed. Cold media, you're participating.
So kind of like what we're doing right now, what we're doing on YouTube, is that considered more like YouTube? Because we're kind of creating our own world and no one's really guessing exactly what you and I are talking about. They're just absorbing it as the conversation slowly grows through time. I don't remember exactly what you said, but if you had to describe YouTube, would that be a cold or a hot medium?
YouTube, I mean, by its very name, it's YouTube. It is your videos that are coming. It is by its very nature participatory. That's not to say hot media can't succeed. There are plenty of people who do pseudo-documentaries on YouTube that succeed, but by and large, the medium itself rewards participation.
Oh, so it is a cold medium.
It is cool, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, at the very least, it's cool. Like just beer.
Yeah. Well, all right. So we're since we're talking about media and writing, etc. So you would describe yourself as a writer, right? That's like your number one thing. If someone says Lain, what are you? You would say I am a writer.
Yes.
And in the same way, I would probably say I don't know, artist/musician. I really can't decide. But like moving forward, I guess like you want people to really absorb your worldview then as like a hot medium in the future. Like you're going to write a couple of books about a plethora of different things, and maybe like in the future you expect people to kind of like be on the same train as you, but not necessarily as a participatory act, but rather that they're looking into your mind.
No, exactly. And I do feel like I'm fighting a doomed journey here because our times really are a cool time. I mean, TikTok, social media, YouTube, all that's all cool media. It's all about participation. So I do feel like if you choose to pursue any hot media, writing, photography, painting, any sort of single-sense medium, you are fighting an uphill battle. So if you don't have a passion for it, don't bother, because that's not where the attention really is.
Well, there's something that I really respect about you. It's okay. So there's something that I really respect about you, Lain, is that like your ability to retain information and then speak about it, not only regurgitating that information, but also putting your own spin on it, is something that I've never really been good at. I feel like I'm a lot better at listening to somebody, taking it internally, but then when someone asks me to put it in my own words and make it interesting so that another audience can listen to it who's never heard that very thing before, I'm like, I totally fail. So usually what I do is I'll have my own ideas, my own personal ideas, and then just kind of hope that someone else goes along the ride. And that's why I do jokes a lot on my channel, because I'm like, all right, if this is boring, at the very least I can make people laugh along the way. So I admire how you put so much thought into this and are like kind of carrying the legacy, like I said, of other authors before. It's just like how often do you read?
So it's funny because I live here in Japan. I read mostly basically exclusively in English, most of the books. So I don't have ready access to physical books. What's nice is I have e-books. I guess you can't see it, so the glare is too much. But I download most of my books for free. I'll be honest, I pirate half of them or more. But some of them I do purchase. I do purchase some of them. But I just download a bunch of my books, and I carry my phone everywhere I go. I mean, that's kind of the logic behind it. Wherever I go, I carry my phone. So I can read theoretically anywhere. On a train, a free hour at work, anywhere. Because I have my phone automatically with me. So I read every day as a result. Now, reading every day is sometimes 10 minutes. It's not necessarily a lot, because I get distracted and stuff. But at the very least, I'm able to read every day. And obviously, I do read more than 10 minutes other days too. But
well, how do you know the right books to read is the real question. I really have to ask, because I never really know what books to start with, where I should go, how to develop my worldview. A lot of that has been developed through like art and music. One of the things is I'm very ADHD, and since I'm not necessarily like a writer as you are, I don't even really know where to start. So what inspires you to pick up a book, and how do you know where to go from there? How do you know that this is a book that you want to pick up and sort of add to your repository of knowledge?
Whatever interests you. Fuck anything else. Only what interests you. And I myself as a writer try to keep things as engaging as I possibly can, because in this age, if it doesn't interest you, you're not going to bother with it. You do have groups like Lit and our books on Reddit that try to maintain this academic kind of like you have to follow the canon. That's old school shit. I mean, my father's an academic, and I guess maybe I'm rebelling against him a little bit here, but that doesn't cut it anymore. You read what interests you, and that's the same for me. If a book doesn't interest me by the second page, I cut it. It's just not worth it. It's failing. It has to interest you. You have to be hooked from the first page at the minimum. at the minimum, the first chapter. Otherwise, it's not worth it, is my opinion.
You know, that's actually a really good point, because one of the things I really struggle with now is because we're all addicted to social media and YouTube. I mean, I waste so much time watching videos that I probably shouldn't. Like, I have to kind of go on an information diet one of these days so that I know that I'm intaking information that benefits me and my creative endeavors. But whenever I read a book, I'm thinking of people like you and people who read constantly. I'm like, crap, I'm not reading enough. So even if this book necessarily isn't intriguing me, I should force myself to get through it because there's some important information there. And you're saying that if the book doesn't intrigue you in the first page, fuck it, who cares?
Yeah, if that's the writer's fault. If you're not engaged by the first several pages, that's not your fault. That's the writer's fault, and that's why I put a lot of pressure on myself as a writer, because I'm very aware of that. If I'm not entertaining my audience, that's not your fault. That's my fault. And I put that same strain on other writers I read. Doesn't matter when they were writing. Don Quixote was written nearly 500 years ago, and that's one of my favorite books. Cervantes manages to thoroughly capture my interest throughout all of part 1 and 2. Over 1,000 pages of Don Quixote 500 years ago. And that was purely because I was interested. If a writer 500 years ago can do it, then you should be able to do it now too.
So I think one of the interesting questions I would have for you then is, like you were talking about this before we actually put the video on, is that people's attention spans are completely shattered and destroyed by YouTube. And you said that 100 years ago, it would have been much easier to be a writer because the only form of entertainment was either the radio or books. So you kind of had it easy in that you didn't have to put as much effort for people to potentially pick up what you wrote and engage with your content. Whereas now with YouTube, TikTok, the internet, and basically like any form of digital content, it's getting in the way of people even wanting to read in the first place. So for you to write a book that's actually engaging, you have to develop a very specific skill set that people wouldn't even have thought about 100 years ago.
No, exactly, yeah. And it's funny because I feel like one of the people who simultaneously understood this the best and also got this the most wrong in another way is David Foster Wallace. David Foster Wallace, if you read his interviews, or if you read some of his essays and writings, he talks about this a lot. And if I remember correctly, he even wrote at some point about how the pressure now is for writers to up their game. On the other hand, I could not get past 70 pages of Infinite Jest, and that was me forcing myself to. It did not pass my 2-page criteria. I only forced myself to read 70 pages of it because he's such a reputable author and because I agreed with a lot of his interviews and other writings, in his essays and such. But Infinite Jest failed in that regard. I could not, and that's a 1,000-page book, by the way, over 1,000 pages. 70 pages, I was done. He failed as a writer, despite the fact that I respect him as a thinker a lot. But just because I respect him as a thinker doesn't mean I have to engage with him as a fiction writer.
So, like, another thing that I guess I have to ask you about is finding the right environment to read. So, again, I have a girlfriend and I live with her right now, so a lot of the time I actually am not really alone and I can't focus on my thoughts. The only time of the day that I get to read is either on the train or when I'm on work, when I have my downtime. What is the ideal environment for you to read? How do you focus and how do you not let your phone get in the way?
So, I was just criticizing David Foster Wallace as a fiction writer, but as a thinker, this is what I agree with him a lot about. He talks about how the trouble with reading these days is precisely that, finding the time, the space to read. And he talks about how that's a lot less appealing these days. Specifically, he talks about how in America, at the time, when he was doing an interview, I think in the mid-2000s, is how they like having background noise all the time. Even at this bar, we have background noise. People don't like having silence. And to do good reading, you need to have silence. That's why writing or engaging in reading is an uphill battle these days. And he was right with that diagnosis. To engage with reading, I mean, finding days in your life, finding times in your day where you're just naturally quiet. Commutes to work, at the very least in Japan, where you don't have to drive a car necessarily everywhere to work, is easy. I read a lot on the train. Sometimes I would take the long way around just to have more time to read. Other times is I mean, this is me being a little bit cheeky, but there are times at work where I'm able to read a little bit. Less so now, but before my previous job, I was able to sneak in a lot of reading at work. But if you have a busy family life or whatever, you don't have personal space, that could definitely put a hamper on things. But I imagine you're not always engaged with the people around you. When you're not, at the moment you're not engaged, that can create time when you're reading. But I would say the number one reading time in my own personal life is just commuting. The commute time is a perfect time where it's basically silence and I can just read. Yeah.
So the camera's about to die. We don't really have a lot of time left to get at the content that we want. So due to the limitations of this thing, we're going to have to end the video. Lain, do you have any final thoughts on the last question?
Nah, just chill, man.
Just chill. So, if any of you guys enjoyed this video and you found it engaging and you'd like to see us come to Golden Gai again and talk about various topics, please leave a comment and maybe tell me what you thought about it. Of course, I really appreciate all of you that are here. YouTube has been a really interesting journey, and it's one of my favorite things in the freaking world to do, to talk about ideas with people who know things that I wouldn't in my life ever think about without them. So, Lain, I just have to say thank you. And what is your YouTube again? So people can follow you?
I have a channel called McLuhanism. I haven't uploaded there in a while, but I do have two serious documentary-esque video essays up there. And I also have an itch.io where I uploaded a visual novel I wrote several years ago. So those are those two videos in that visual novel are the most serious works I've put out to date.
All right. Well, if anybody wants to follow Lain somewhere, Lain on his YouTube channel, I'm going to put it in the pinned comments down in the comment section below. God, I've been drinking a lot here. And again, Lain, I think we should do this again. What do you think?
I would love to. So long as you guys don't hate me too much on the comments, you know?
This has been Scantily Clad, Scantily Clumble, Tantris Humble, and Lain the Exiled Writer?
Exactly.
So, in any case, peace out, and thank you.
Peace.